49. The other thing we've been talking about tonight is Speaker's Corner. Hyde Park may no longer be the only place in London to air your views. East London is setting up a rival Speaker's Corner. I love the idea that in our democracy, there are still parts of the world where if you stand up on an upturned soapbox or on a beer crate and have your say, you would be instantly arrested. It's a fantastic freedom that we have in this part of the world, especially if you live in Stony Down Park in Walthamstow, inspired by that well-known spot just down the road here where Karl Marx and Lenin, imagine seeing Lenin stand up at Hyde Park Corner. George Orwell as well in years gone by, all addressing the crowds. Our reporter Louise Pepper is in Hyde Park for us now. Louise, tell us all about this.
I'm not quite addressing the crowds to follow on from that list of great names. Yes, here at Hyde Park Speaker's Corner is the oldest and most famous of all Speaker's Corners. What people don't really realise is there used to be other Speaker's Corners around London. Back in the 19th century, Finsbury Park, and well into the 20th century, in fact, Finsbury Park, Clapham Common, Victoria Park, all had their own Speaker's Corners, and they all faded away, and this Speaker's Corner really has been the only one left, and a little bit of a tourist attraction, really. I spoke earlier to a charity, the charity called the Speaker's Corners Trust, and they said this is something they'd really encourage. They're really behind this. They want to see the Speaker's Corners revived across London. Now, as you were just saying, the people down at Stony Down Park, now that's a very tiny little park. It's almost like a sort of gardens. It's nowhere near comparison to the size of Hyde Park that I'm standing in. And perhaps because it's local there and it's local schools and local residents that are starting it up, it may be that more local issues are those that are brought up. That's what people want to bring to the platform, should it be allowed. They're having the meeting tonight, obviously, to find out what residents think. And we spoke to some residents earlier and asked them what sort of topics they thought should be spoken of at Speaker's Corner.
Crime and the area around here now, just gone to pot. I mean, people up there, they have their chance and they can voice their opinion and hope people will take notice of it.
Well, I think it's a good idea because when you go home you talk about things and you moan about things, but there's no one to actually moan to when you're in your own house. So I think Speaker's Corner is a good thing.
Well, yeah, the Olympics would be one of the subjects. The aftermath after the Olympics, whether we would be able to afford to use the facilities they make. Well, I wouldn't be a person to stand up and speak at Speaker's Corner, but I would listen to somebody else, that's for sure, and give encouragement.
I think it's a fantastic idea to have more Speaker's Corners all over London. And let's be honest, if nothing else, it's a place for out-of-work radio hosts who can't get any work to go and just have their say. It's a lovely idea. And we need it in our democracy more than ever. We need the opportunity to be able to stand up and vent our angers and frustrations about the world. Here's James O'Rourke, who's a councillor for the ward in Walthamstow, where this is going to be based. James, I believe you've just stepped out of the meeting being held to listen to the residents' views on this. How's it going?
Well, they've only just started, to be honest, so they're just getting through the first piece of the agenda. You're
a local boy, is that right?
That's right, yeah. I actually went to one of the schools that's involved in the project, St Patrick's.
So what are people, I'm curious, what are people angry about in East 17, do you think?
The usual things, cleanliness of the streets, collecting their bins, the usual kind of things.
And the idea, what I love about this is the idea, the old saying that all politics is local. This brings it alive, doesn't it? Because unless you write to your local newspaper or you phone a radio station like this, the issues that really matter are the issues on your doorstep. And this is a way to try and get stuff done, I guess.
You're absolutely right. I'm actually chair of the Children and Young People Scrutiny Committee, and I'm talking to a couple of young reporters that we've got who write for our local newspaper. And I've just said to them, well, you're welcome to come along to my scrutiny committee, and I'll hopefully keep you awake long enough to get to the end. And so I see this as a grand opportunity to get young people particularly talking to each other, and I can turn up and I can hear what they're saying to us.
I also love the idea that debating shouldn't just be for people who are at Oxbridge or for the Oxford Debating Society and so on, the idea that it can happen anywhere.
Well, I'm an East End boy. They keep calling me the East End boy who's been made good. I hope that's true. And by the way, it's not only people like you who could be out of a job. I could be out of a job next May, and I could be on Speaker's Corners voicing my opinion as well.
What about the idea, let's talk about other issues as well around this.
Sure.
What about the idea that a Speaker's Corner can attract, especially in your part of the world, can attract extremists, let's just say, from minority groups?
That's always a risk, isn't it? But I think the BBC made a very brave move to have the BNP on Question Time, and look what it did. It showed them up to be what they are. And, you know, if that happens, we're prepared for it. Our Safer Neighbourhood team, which is our police team, are prepared for it. So long as it doesn't incite any violence or any other antisocial behaviour.
But that can happen, can't it? We know there is a history in certain areas of London of, and I have to be very careful in the language that I use here, but there is a history of hatred being preached. And what do you do if that happens? Do you have, will the police be there monitoring what's being said?
Well, no. The police won't be there monitoring all of the time. That's impractical. But, you know, people have the right to say what they want to say, and if people then report that things are getting out of order, then that's something that we would have to look at, and that's certainly something that the committee are going to take quite seriously this evening.
What's the timescale on this? Any idea when this is going to start and when we can expect it to be up and running and so on?
The committee are actually optimistic to have it up and running by April next year, thereabouts.
Why so long? I never understand why things take so long.
Well, they're having to work with the local authority in terms of all sorts of things like health and safety, and we're doing some other projects there as well, where, you know, we just need to plan it very meticulously to make sure we've got absolutely all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
Well, it's a great idea, and I think it should be encouraged in other areas of London as well. Thank you very much, James. Let you get back to your meeting. James O'Rourke, who's councillor for the ward out in Walthamstow, where this idea of another Speaker's Corner in East 17 is trying to be brought to life. It's a great idea. Karl Marx, Lenin. Imagine seeing Lenin speak live on Hyde Park Corner. George Orwell, many others have all stood up there at one time or another. And as I said earlier on, I think the idea of it's the living embodiment, isn't it, still, of democracy and of power, the idea that the power of the crowd, the idea that you can change people's thoughts and attitudes just by standing up in streets. It's the ultimate democratic freedom, really, and it's a great way on a Sunday morning in London. It's normally tourists who are attracted these days, but if you've got nothing else to do and you're in central London, just to stand with the park as in the background and listen to the often, let's be honest about it, often insane ramblings of people who believe that pickles can cure heart disease, or who want to overthrow the royal family, as I said earlier, and replace them with the Cats Protection League, whatever it might be. It's stand up on a soapbox, say whatever you wish to say. 0207 224